One thing is for sure, Impact Wrestling features a wealth of young talent, and a key figure in that youth movement is Super X Cup tournament winner and former X Division champ Ace Austin. At Sacrifice on Saturday on Impact Plus, Austin looks to become X Division champ again. Don't bet against him because he's always got an ace up his sleeve. Thank you, Ace Austin. Tell us about Sacrifice and challenging TJP for the title.
I couldn't have asked for a better introduction. That was perfect. That was everything. Well, there is a deeper story behind this match with TJP than people realize. You know, this is really the full circle of my Impact Wrestling career. This is me coming back around to the X Division title, which was the launching point of my career when I first started with Impact Wrestling, against TJP, who was the very first obstacle that I was unable to overcome in my Impact Wrestling career. At Sacrifice, which, if we all remember, last year I main evented Sacrifice as X Division champion against the current world champion at the time. And it was a history-making match. No titles on the line, of course. So this is like, I have just such a short 2-year career with Impact Wrestling. But in those 2 years, I have all of these points coming back around. It just shows you how far I've gone and how much I've done in such a short time. So yeah, this match is very important in me taking the next step, the next big step in my career.
It really is amazing to see what you've been able to accomplish in that short period of time. Ace, you're so mature for a young wrestler. Just what makes Ace Austin be able to handle all this and do all this at such a young age?
Because I believe it's because I'm well traveled. I believe it's because I refused to stay in one place thus far in my career. I haven't spent more than 2 years at a time in any particular spot. When I started, I was trained by the Wild Samoans in Pennsylvania. I spent, a year training before I debuted. And then I spent about 1.5 years or so in the Pennsylvania area before breaking out into the East Coast. And then I started spending some more time out in New Jersey on the East Coast. And that led to opportunities up and down the East Coast, up in New York, and then all the way down through into Florida. And like all of these things going well for me. And then I made relationships in the Midwest. So I started spending some time out there. And I was just traveling everywhere in between, all the way up Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Northeast, all the way down the East Coast, out to the Midwest. Just a constant rotation of traveling and meeting and learning and soaking up everything that I possibly could early on. And then my relationships in the Midwest caused me to move out there. And I lived in one spot for a year, moved in with another wrestler, lived in that spot for a year, and then finally got my own apartment. So like, because, because I've started my career with Impact Wrestling and I've been doing that. So I think it's just because I never was complacent. I was never satisfied with anything at any point in my career. I never, had like a big opportunity and just sat down and was like, wow, that was great. I did that. It was always on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. I refuse. I have not slowed down. Coming up in April will be my 6-year wrestling anniversary. 6 years inside of the business. And I haven't, hit the brakes at all in these 6 years. It's just been just go the whole time. So yeah, it's just, I think that's what did it for me. It was just, I'm very traveled and I've done so much in such a short period of time that I had to grow. I had to be mature and be professional.
Well, you have grown and you've done it. And it really is cool to watch. And there's so much left to go, which is very cool as well. Hey, you mentioned AFA, the Wild Samoan, and in Florida, WXW, which is a branch of that. You got to wrestle in Florida, and what was it like learning and training under the watchful eye of AFA?
So AFA wasn't my trainer. I didn't train with the Samoans in Florida. I trained with the Samoans in Pennsylvania. So Samu was my trainer, but my first experience inside of independent wrestling at all, like the first time I showed up to the Wild Samoans in Pennsylvania, AFA was there to do a seminar. So like I sat under his learning tree. It was my first experience ever inside of a learning position with wrestling. I got to sit under AFA's learning tree. And at the end of his, seminar, his discussion, we all walked up and shook his hand, and he looked at me, and I was much smaller than I am now. I was much skinnier, and I was only 17. I just turned 17 the day before I met him, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, "Of course. There's no doubt in my mind." And he said, "Okay, I'll see you up there." And then, so I met him a few times while training with Samu, but Samu was primarily my trainer up in Pennsylvania. So but the Samoan family as a whole, like just that connection has been so important to my career so far. It has opened doors for me that I might have had to, it just gave me that good reputation always. And I was always able to deliver the most professional attitude because that's the foundation I learned with the Samoans.
Talk about TJP. Talk about what he brings to the table, the ring, and working a match with him.
I mean, there's no doubt about, TJP could possibly be, from a career standpoint, it could be a reflection of myself. His career is, nothing short of impressive. He has been around since he was a young teenager. That's what I wish I could have done. I wish I could have started as young as he did, but where I came from, it wasn't really a possibility, and I didn't have the kind of resources to break out of that, yet until I got a little older. So he's another guy who did a lot when he was young and came up very quickly, and I can't take that lightly, but I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. And I think that there is, he might have more experience, but I think we're nothing if not evenly matched going into this.
It should be really exciting. A lot of fans are looking forward to this one. And it's at Sacrifice on Saturday on Impact Plus. Ace Austin goes for that X Division title against Champ TJP. Hey, Ace. Are you a different wrestler from the one who won the X Division title in 2019?
Yeah, absolutely. The X Division title changed me. My run as X Division champion changed me completely. So who I was going into Bound for Glory in 2019 is not who I was going into the main event at Slammiversary. It's not who I was going into the tag title match at Bound for Glory in 2020. And it's not who I am going into Sacrifice on Saturday.
Hey, that's how you know the progression, because you like you said, not being complacent, continuing to do things and look to the next challenge. And that's also about wrestling and getting better and growing and improving. Who and how have you become a better wrestler? How have you become a better wrestler? Who has helped you become a better wrestler during your times now? Is it just the battles you've had with different opponents that have made you better? Is there outside work that has made you better?
It's taken pieces from everywhere. I don't settle for sitting under one learning tree. I go through the whole forest. I think the story of my career has been a lot of right place, right time. I say this all the time. A lot of the opportunities I was able to seize were because I did a very good job early on of never staying in one spot, so that I was always available for the opportunities that came. if I would have just stuck where, just stayed where I lived, you know, with my mom on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, I wouldn't have been available for the opportunities that presented themselves to me in New York or the Midwest or whatever. So that constantly traveling circle made me present for a lot of these, hey, we need somebody, you're on, you know, kind of moments. And that's, I feel like under pressure is where I shine. You know, really, like, if I don't have that time to think, if you just put me on, my natural instinct is to just be the very best that I can be. So so that's kind of always what has happened up to this point. And yeah, that's a perfect example of that. Just constantly putting myself in those positions. You know, and then now here we are. I forgot why I started talking about that.
It was just about the growth and about just becoming a better wrestler and improving who you're working with.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So being under pressure, being put on the spot is how I've been able to grow so fast, so quickly. It's getting put in with the absolute best under pressure, going into that ladder match as such an inexperienced young wrestler. I had to adapt to the situation, and I had to do it. Main event at Slammiversary, I was in there with some of the absolute best in the world, with Eric Young, with Rich Swann, with Eddie Edwards. It was like, you know, me and Trey were both the most inexperienced in that match, and we had to adapt to the situation we were in. And then getting put in a tag team with Fulton, and then having to immediately go into the mix with the best tag teams in the world forced us to be on our very best game all the time. There was never a time for us to slip up, never a time for mistakes. So yeah, it's been the people that I've got to work with, people that I have, you know, chosen to surround myself with, have just provided this like threshold for me to just grow.
Well, you mentioned Madman Fulton, and I want to get to him, but I also want to ask, how much do you enjoy taking that microphone and just letting it rip?
Oh, it's funny. I used to really, you know, be afraid of that. You know, talking on the microphone was the thing that I felt like I hadn't, you know, mastered early on. You know, you could put me in the ring and you could show me what to do, and I would pick it up right away. But like, getting in front of the microphone was hard for me at first. And until I realized that, like, it's less about thinking, what do I say, and more about what do I feel right now. When I want these people to know how I feel right now, and I want them to feel the same way that I do. So it's just becomes so much easier that way.
Ace, did you get that from anyone or anything you've seen just to come out with that reaction like that?
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously all the learning trees I've been under, that's something that I've needed extra help with. And then coming into contact with Impact's own Mean Gia Miller, it also helped. You know, she's got a degree in talking, so I get some pointers from Gia Miller too.
Hey, what does Madman Fulton mean to Ace Austin, Impact Wrestling?
Oh, Madman Fulton is he's somebody that, man, when we met, he was lost. You know, they called him Madman because he had lost his mind. You know, he was under the control of Sami Callihan, you know, and OVE, and he wasn't thinking for himself. He was just a mad dog on a leash, forced to do someone else's bidding. So when I met Madman Fulton, you know, I took the leash off of him. And I said, hey, man, you can do whatever you want to do, but if you want to get to the top, just come with me. I'm going to let you do whatever you want to do. You know, it's all up to you. But if you just stick with me, if we just form this bond, the sky, you know, the sky isn't even the limit. You know, we can go beyond that. And I, you know, and it's, you know, I think that's what makes our dynamic work so well. I don't try to tell him what to do. I don't try to control him. I've let the madman off the leash, and he has found a new part of himself that he didn't realize he had, and that's what I love to see.
Do you think we'll see the AAW tag champs defend their titles on Impact Wrestling?
Not likely, but we defended in Chicago at AAW and all over the independent scene. That's for sure.
Hey, you're a graduate of the Combat Zone Dojo?
No, actually, that Wikipedia information is inaccurate and will hopefully be corrected very soon.
Yeah, I hope so too, because a lot of information is out, not just there, but there were another place I found it as well. So then,
okay.
real quick, if you give us the little backstory of where you mentioned the Samoans. Yep. And that tree. So that's where it was. It was with their group that did that.
My original training came from the Wild Samoans in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I trained there, like I said, as soon as I turned 17. I trained there until I was 18, which is when I was, legally allowed to debut in the state of Pennsylvania. And then it was pretty much like same thing as my Impact career. It was just like a skyrocket immediately. When I debuted in 2015, I wrestled for the Samoans twice on live shows, and then all of a sudden I had a booking in Jersey and then Pittsburgh, and it was just like started getting a little taste of these things around. And then by my 10th match was at CZW's Dojo Wars, which is why people think that I was trained by the CZW dojo, because I came into the dojo so young. I had only been training for 2 years at that point, and only wrestling for less than 1 year at that point. Like I said, it was only my 10th match. It was 8 months into my actual wrestling career. My 10th match, I came to CZW Dojo Wars, and they were impressed with me. They asked me to keep coming back. So every week I was going to the Wild Samoans on Tuesday, and then back home in New Jersey for the Combat Zone Dojo, and then back home, and then back to the Samoans again on Thursday, and back home. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was on the road to whatever shows I could, get my hands on, wherever I could find, wherever I could be for an opportunity. And yeah, so my time with CZW is what really opened up my eyes to the indies, because obviously the Samoans have such a strong connection with the WWE that that's kind of what the mindset is there. So the time I spent with CZW is what really got me going on the independents. So that's why people think I'm trained by CZW, was because that's where my name really picked up some weight. That's where people really started to recognize my work from, because I was consistently doing stuff every week with CZW's dojo program. And then the connections I made at CZW are what got me all over the independents. So, yeah, it was originally the Samoans are my foundation, and the CZW is what broke me into the indies. So they both deserve credit, but
I'm glad you cleared that up, because that's important, obviously. And in all the things I read, it was the reverse. Everything I read was the reverse. So I'm glad you cleared that part up, because it is important, and it's just incredible. Hey, are you a Tony Hawk fan?
Of course I am. Yeah.
About the skateboard. Yeah, who are you? That's right. So who are do you have, now listen, that's probably the only skateboarder I know is Tony Hawk, but who are some of the skateboarders that you enjoy? You're big in skateboarding. At least that's what I read. Do you have a favorite skateboard? And by the way, Ace, I'll know nothing about what you're talking about, but please share anyway, because I think it's cool.
Sure. My favorite brand of skateboard is Flip. I have always been a Flip guy. So Flip is the brand. Those are the boards that I always bought when I used to skate all the time, was Flip. There's a skater that is sponsored by Flip. His name is David Gonzalez. I think he is unbelievable. My favorite skateboarder of all time is probably Mike Vallely. I think he revolutionized the game in a way that I would like to do to wrestling. I would like to do to wrestling what Mike V has done for skateboarding. And of the current generation, Nigel Houston is just a prodigy. Chris Cole, amazing. Bob Burnquist, all the legends. Yeah, those are the guys. And Tony Hawk, of course. Tony Hawk is the pinnacle of skateboarding.
He's the mainstream name. So when I saw skateboard in LA, I was like, Tony Hawk. All right, that's Tony Hawk. And do you still go out and ride?
I try to. It just becomes increasingly risky to do so. You know, my wrestling career is so important to me that jeopardizing it on a skateboard is, you know, not worth it, unfortunately.
You mentioned your schedule, and while you were mentioning that, I was thinking, my gosh, Ace Austin would have been a great old school wrestler, because back in the day they'd work 6 days a week, and actually was it 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. That's how it goes. And I'd see you. That would be you. That style would fit you.
That was me, you know. I got a lot of recognition early in my career because even if I wasn't having matches or bookings, I was at different people's training sessions constantly. You know, I had a guy, a promoter from up in Rhode Island, ran into me in Georgia at A.R. Fox's wrestling school. Me and Myron Reed had traveled from Ohio to Georgia just to train with A.R. Fox. And this guy from Rhode Island came all the way to Georgia to see A.R. Fox's students. And then he saw me and he's like, "What are you doing in Georgia? Aren't you from Pennsylvania?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm from Pennsylvania, but right now I'm living in Ohio and training in Georgia." So it's like, he was so impressed by that he booked me for all of his Rhode Island shows after that. Just consistently always brought me in for those shows. So like, yeah, you know, that was it.
Hard work pays off. It's just you're a role model for that. All right, let's start to wrap this up. And some things that, well, let's see now, hopefully good, you could clear these up. Well, first of all, you mentioned Allentown, Pennsylvania, and this is probably, I'm going back to my day, so I remember this. I don't know if you will. Are you a fan of the Billy Joel song? That says no. He actually does the song Allentown. We move on. We move on to the next one.
I'm familiar. I can't say.
Okay, all right. You're familiar with it. Constituents in Allentown. Hey, I hope I got this part right. Is there anything fun to do in Robesonia, Pennsylvania?
Robesonia, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Robesonia.
Robesonia. Yeah, some very very like Pennsylvania Dutch names where I'm from. Pretty much just skateboarding is what we did for fun. You know, there wasn't a whole lot else. Skateboarding is how we consumed our time.
Are you the most famous person from Conrad Weiser High School?
I have to say yes. I have. I've never heard of anybody else from Conrad Weiser.
There was somebody on the Senate. That doesn't count. Politics doesn't count.
No,
I found a couple people. No, Ace Austin is.
Politics is fake.
And also Ace, I hope I get this part right too. What does the Ace Austin, the Ann Douglas Minish Weiser Decisions Memorial Award mean to you?
Wow. It actually meant a lot to me. I was really unprepared for that award. When they did the senior award ceremony at my high school, I thought it was going to be like all academic accomplishments and stuff, you know, obviously, which wasn't my forte. I started training, like I said, at 17. So like my focus was very clearly wrestling. I had no plans for college, nothing like that. So I was already a pro wrestler before I graduated high school. So obviously that's where my focus was. So going into that, I wasn't expecting any awards, of course, but I received that award from my counselor at high school, who was very close to me. She was very supportive of the pro wrestling dream, even when Conrad Weiser wasn't as supportive as she was. And yeah, so, you know, being granted that award from her and hearing the story behind the award, and they basically called it like the underdog award. So it was them honoring me for relentlessly chasing my dreams and finding success in my life despite any academic, you know, rule. So it was awesome. I can't believe you brought that up. That's really cool.
And that is really cool. I think that is so cool too, because a lot of times when kids are growing up, you get a lot of encouragement, but then there might be things, whatever it is. It's like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. The counselors might say, some teachers, some support, some don't. That's really, is it okay? Do you want to give a shout out to your counselor, or you'd rather keep that private?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't think I should blast any names or anything, but
That's fine.
But the Conrad Weiser, well, so it's initially they exactly what you just said is kind of what they did to me. They told me to kind of go a different direction because they obviously didn't understand what the pro wrestling thing was. So they were like, we can't really help you go in that direction. So maybe pick something else. And I didn't want to do that. I refused to do so. So my counselor was the one that helped me kind of stand up and say, no, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to figure out how to do it. And I did. So.
Wow, Ace, have you ever been back to the high school or even talked to your counselor since then? I know you've been so busy.
Absolutely. When I first graduated in 2015, I was still, like I said, very early in my career. I was traveling a lot, but my home was still in Pennsylvania. So I actually spent my first year outside of high school. I did a community theater show that was kind of local. So I got to see a lot of my classmates and stuff still in community theater. And then the year after that, I went back to my high school and helped out with the musical that they were putting on that year. I did stage crew. I was able to volunteer. I had to get like background checks and everything so that I could work with the school administration. And I was able to help out with the musical and just like support those kids that I had worked with, 2 years prior, who were now like seniors. And it was really cool to see them grown and, really doing the thing. So yeah, I visited as much as I could, and the teachers that were supportive of me, I loved updating them and letting them know how things were going for me. But once I moved out to the Midwest, it became very few and far between. It's probably been like 2 years since I've been back to the school now. But I certainly will whenever I find the time to do that.
Well, that is really outstanding. And I think it just resonates that, hey, follow your dreams, go for it, do your thing. And that's so important. And you resonate that. So that's really cool too. And I got to end with this then, because you mentioned theater. Were you ever in a play? Did you ever have a part of it? Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite play? Did you have a favorite role? That is so cool. I think, Ace, there's such, with pro wrestling, the athleticism, but there's also the theatrics with that as well. And did that help you too?
Oh yeah, that's part of the reason why I fell in love with pro wrestling. Like I said, everything I did in my life, I did with pro wrestling in mind. I knew that all of the hobbies and all of the things that I was getting involved in were only going to be temporary. So that's why I tried to just kind of like dabble in some things. I played some sports when I was younger, didn't really like organized sports. So that's why I got into like skateboarding and parkour and these really eccentric versions of self-discipline. And then I found theater and I fell in love with theater. If it wasn't for pro wrestling, like if pro wrestling didn't take up as much of my time as it does, theater is the one thing I would still like to have time for. I would pick theater over skateboarding, I have to say, honestly. It really was an incredible experience to be a part of. So I did 14 I've been in 14 productions. A lot of those were musicals. Some of them were just on stage acting plays. I have to say my favorite was probably, oh boy, it's really hard to pick favorites, man. I had a part. I got like an actual part in all of the shows that I was in except for 2 of them. So 12 out of the 14 shows that I did, I had like a leading role.
The leading role.
Yeah, I was Big Jule in Guys
and Dolls.
Yep, that was one of my favorites. That was one of my favorites to do because I was so short and like little in high school that they would always put me in those ironically tough guy roles because like I was the guy I wanted to be a wrestler and I just like saw myself as much bigger than I was. So they always put me in those kinds of roles. So Guys and Dolls was probably one of my favorites for sure. I did Les Mis the year after I graduated high school, and that's a classic and it's unbelievable. Also Titanic. We did Titanic my senior year, and that show was so special because my senior class was so tight knit that like our tears on stage were so organic because like it was the last time we were performing together. It was the last time we got to do this together before we graduated and separated and all that stuff. So it was very emotional. It was a great show to do for my senior year. So yeah, those are probably my favorites.
Well, that's great. Ace, that's incredible. Next time we do an interview, we're just going to talk about Broadway and plays. I promise you. That's all we're going to do. When you mentioned Guys and Dolls, that's the first thing that came to mind was I got to ask him about guys. I remember the original with Sinatra in it, and Marlon Brando. Oh my gosh, that was just great. I know Dr. Ross is going to kill me because I'm keeping you over, so I want to let you go. Thank you, Ace, so much. Dr. Ross, always thank you, sir. I've got a shoulder problem. I'll call you later on that. Got to check it out. Ace, anything you want to close with? We got the big show coming up, Sacrifice, your social media, anything you want to wrap up with, the floor is yours.
Just, check out all my social medias. You can find links on all my social medias to my merchandise stores, to my Cameo. If you buy a Cameo from me, pick a number between 1 and 630, and I will tell you about the match that I've had, because I've had a little over 630 matches now. I keep track of all of them, and I like to tell stories about them. So pick a number, get a Cameo, and watch the culmination of my professional wrestling career this Saturday at Sacrifice. It is going to be the next mountaintop for Ace Austin, and the possibilities are endless from there.